Yo ho ho, though this is Caribbean Pirate again with another video. This is coming on the heels of the 2.7. Boy, I don't even know what to call this now. Because we have a good more set of the Wuthering Waves CCC saying that there's no combat, the dry patch is the best patch ever. And then we have some other content creators that are saying that it's good, the story is progressing, and they're taking their time with it, and they're going forward with it. My thoughts on this is that, first of all, these are my thoughts and opinions, no one else's. What I do realize is that some content creators are siding with one way, and some other content creators are siding the other way. We have to find a spot in the middle to be, because, yes, granted, it's a gacha game, and it has a story to tell at the same time. When there was always the cry to say that we wanted more combat events. And then the devs listened, and then they gave us the addition of two more floors in the middle of TOA to add to the combat and to test your skill. There's also the holograms, which is also meant to test your skill. But what has happened is that we have players who characters are at a point where they're built. They have become so efficient in knowing their team builds and knowing how to do their rotations properly down to a T that combat that the devs would have thought would have taken players a certain amount of time to go through. They're basically clearing it in less time, and some of them are doing it in like less than a day. And if they don't time gate these events, they realize that most of the more veteran players are basically flying through this content without any kind of thing stopping them whatsoever because their accounts are built to suit. They spent the time and money and the energy to get their accounts where they are. And you have the other side of the player base, which are the ones who don't have their accounts built to that kind of a level and degree. And you see that they are, in a sense, they themselves are having a hard time challenging the content. Um, I think I'm going to make this example. But the thing about it is that I'm not calling him out. I'm just using it as an example because I'm using the Gacha podcast that came about as something kind of give me the reviews of what where some of these CCs are. And everyone knows Saint. Saint's name is basically a household name when it comes to Wuthering Waves. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people like him. I on one side, he has some views that he takes sometimes, which in a sense I will take offense to because it hits me in that sense. But I respect him to a point to understand where his views is coming from. He's coming from a place where he's trying to see exactly, he's like, this is the product you're bringing up, and to try to bring out something that's going to be good for the people. And not really in a sense to just be bashing, bashing, bashing. And everybody thought that he would always be one never to say anything bad about Wuthering Waves. When he himself said it, I remember in a video, on a stream, he said it. He said he will call out Kuro when they're doing dog shit, and he said he will do it when the time comes. The point in time has come where the patches have reached a point where they have moved from focusing on the combat side of the events of everything right now to focus on the story. And for a player like him with his account and how he loves to play the game in the sense of doing all the showcase and whatnot and showing all the combat of the game, so we can advertise the game to people who come to your stream. So you can tell that it's going to be a bit of a dry spell for him. It's like there's not nothing for him to do. Where he went through, I saw his reaction to the 2.0 patch. I myself haven't done one, and I don't know if I will do one. It might be just a general overview of it or whatnot. Look out for that. Um, he wants something that will engage him in that sense in combat. And because there's that part of the player base who play Wuthering Waves who loves that combat side of it and in a sense looks for that all the time. And you can see a lot of them are calling up for some of the old time events that we used to have where we used to have to add on the difficulties and just crack it up to a point where it's insanely simple where you'd have a challenge. But then you have the other side of the player base who can't handle those kinds of challenges that you don't, their accounts aren't built for that. I then make reference to Ethan. Love him dearly. cool guy, very wonderful. But as Ethan himself said on the podcast, he doesn't play his own account. He plays on his viewers' accounts. So in a sense, for him, it's not to say that he has gone through that process of actually working his account and playing it or not. That's his choice. I'm not bashing the guy on that. But it's just to show that once you have accounts that are already built to a certain level and you're accustomed to using this to a certain level, if you don't have anything in order to allow you to try it, it's not going to work. They're gonna just say it's like, okay, it's gonna be bad. Like taking the case of when the two more flaws in the 208 came out. These are supposed to be the flaws of challenge for players. And again, bringing it back to the podcast, you saw the completely varying type of views. You saw some were saying the bosses were too complicated, the mechanics of the boss is too hard, the boss is just moving around too much. We had this was happening. Why is this boss in it? This boss is doing this. We know what. You see the complaints where the combat people were having problems with. But then, do I say, is it the combat people having problems with it? Or was it the ones who was just accustomed steamrolling through all the content because they just build the characters to the point where they can just steamroll it through? Now, in a sense, when the skill involved in using the combat is coming in, you realize that this is where the trouble is coming in. Because then this also stems all the way into Gotcha Smart's video when he was saying it had a problem because he couldn't clear it with Zani and Spectre Rover. And you realize that sure, certain teams are not going to do the amount of damage you wish for it to do. And there's certain teams that you have to play a little bit more sweaty than others to get the job done. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just that it would take a lot more effort, a lot more skill to complete the content instead of just being able to breeze through by putting your face on the keyboard and just run it straight across, which a lot of people have gotten too accustomed to. And then I made this back again to what Captain Cabinet said on the podcast at the same point in time. Everyone has gotten accustomed to being able and always complaining and say, oh, the content is too easy. We're going through it too fast. There's no challenge. Give us a challenge. Holograms were made. Holograms became a challenge. And then you realize that some people attack the challenges in the holograms and they were happy with it, the combat challenges with combat. Those who love the combat, who love holograms, going full on the first max level and going ham at it and actually beating it. It's a challenge, yes. But then you see those who do tower wizardry in a sense, and then you realize where the problem comes in. They put in the bosses that you have to fight, and then they give you specifics and limitations to get buffs in order to fight them, and then also the limitations you have in it at the same point in time. And then you realize, no, they're complaining about that. No, in a sense, I'm not bashing anyone. I'm just looking at it from the perspective is that devs have tried their best to kind of give a balance between combat and story. We have been in Roguna for at least, well, I can't even remember the time when it started. It began with the invitation to come to the current event. This was the beginning of 2.2. We are coming into 2.7. I can see Crow not wanting to take us into into 3.0. They want to take us into the new region in 3.2. So they need this patch to really get the story moving to carry us through. Because if we look at it from the past patches from about 2.4, 2.3, from 2.4 come forward, if we look just look at it from 2.4, you see they have been pushing the story to a point where we are now getting into the world building. We have seen what's going on within Witness City itself. We have seen what's going on in Avendolium in the tower. We have reached the Septimon. We have gone through the Dark Tide in Septimon now as well. We have not realized exactly what's going to happen within the whole of Witness City on a whole, because the Dark Tide is now imminent and coming into the whole of Witness City. So now everyone has to come together to fight against the Dark Tide. This is the end game for Renacita. This is the finale in which we are going to close the curtains on Renacita and make our journey onwards into the new area. Wherever that area is going to be, I don't know. We wait to find out. But the thing about it is that everyone has been fighting down a sense of story pacing. Now, I'm going to make a comparison. I, don't, I would say no. I play Genshin Impact. You can call it whatever you want. I don't care. But the thing about it is, a while back, there were very much complaints in in the Genshin community to say that the story is not going anywhere. The story is moving too slow. What is happening? Why it is we're not getting anything with the story? And then when it started putting this, you realize it was just a rush of a mess. Here we have Kuro taking the time. We have set the world building. We have gotten the world lore. Those of us who also love lore as well. I love the lore from Wuthering Waves. And in a sense has brought about so much discussion that you see that it has actually to think a patch that was about one character's story has basically put the player base of the game itself split into two sides. Basically. And then from this now, you realize that the whole story for Wuthering Waves has a more in-depth meaning to it. Sure, you have those who are not going to care for story. That's very true. But you do have that player base that does love story. So now Kura is now catering for that side of the player base. They have tried to cater for the player base for the combat enthusiasts, which would be there's two flowers within towers. Yes, they'll say it's just two towers, it's not gonna do much anything. But in a sense, keep challenging yourself there and see exactly how good you can do with your different teams and what and how you go. And you have those who love story, those who love the world building, those who love the lore. The story is now taking on a part where we have now made the journey through Septimont. Septimont has now been freed from the dark tide in a sense. The dark tide came, they fought it back in the great hunt. And now we are coming to the end of the story where Septimont, Renacita, the entire Renacita, because Septimont is part of Renacita anyway. You have the entire thing happening coming to an end. We are seeing the ending of a chapter, and they want to ensure that this chapter is done before they move to the next area in the new version 3.0 unfold. I can see that the way how it's coming out. And for me, I'm in a sense glad because it seems to me in a sense that there's so much of the world that has happened that you need a point now where you have to stop. You have to stop all the different distractions, get the story moving, and then come back again. Because everybody, when you're going to check out the update page, you check out everything, you realize that there's not much to do. What they want you to do is to go through the story. Once you go through the story, they're hoping that the story will then bring about that sense of interactivity, that discussion, that sense of the player base coming together to say, okay, this is where we are. The story is moving forward. There are three quests, main story quests happening in that patch. Three. You know what it is to put three main story quests in one patch? This is because they are really wanting to push this out and get the story off and going. They really want to do the finale of Renacita and ensure that we have a wonderful time. I am one, I will let them do what they want to do because as I love this story, I want to see the finale of Renacita become one of the greatest things ever because everyone knows when Renacita came in at 2.0, it was a breath of fresh air that brought so many people back to Wuthering Waves. That had a lot of people in a sense put Wuthering Waves on the map. Everybody in a sense. Yeah, you still see some people who do to say, oh, you remember the 1.0 fiasco. Of course we do. It was the game's coming out time, and it says it realizes that it shows the work that the developers have done since then. You saw what was going on in 1.0, and then you see coming into Renaissance into 2.0, they took a step forward, they took responsibility, and they got the job done. You cannot say that they have not put in the effort to get the story or the game to where it is today. They have put in the work. You have to say thank you. And then again, Cabinets said it in a video she did that just came out not too long ago. So I will link it in the description. That when the words that we use tends to be very specific, especially for the Western world, we have to realize that how we would say something is not how someone else will interpret it in another language. in a sense where they come in a sense with combat events to combat. Another thing, which is combat events and then combat challenges. It's two different things altogether. And I've seen it in chats where you have seen people in chats tell them, if you're doing the review, be specific on what you're talking about. I can understand. I was a bit confused when I saw that, but then I realized is that I can understand why they're bringing the awareness of it now. Because if you're not specific and you just say combat events, many things can be listed under combat events. It's like a broad spectrum unless you actually get to be specific as to what you're talking about. They're going to just take it under as one thing only. And many people are not all that thrilled about certain types of combat events. As you can see, a lot of the new one that's coming on, it's like a vampire savior look-alike. A lot of people are gonna have fun. I'm sure we're gonna have fun with it. But a lot of people are already looking at it like, it's not what we wanted. And then you realize it's like, come on, you can't have your cake and eat it too. They brought out some combat challenges to the two towers. Granted, most of say they did that. They say, oh, it's a whale. But the joke was it's to give something to the whales to do. That was a funny one when that one came out. But on the all jokes aside, they brought out, they did something for combat, and now they're doing something for the story wise. They're trying to get the story finished before 3.0. I don't know if that's what they're trying to do, but the way how things are going, this is what I'm seeing. They're trying to finish it by the time they're going to 3.0 so that when 3.0 drops, it's going to carry us into a new area with a fresh start. Just as 2.0 started with us coming into Renesita with a fresh start. They are trying to ensure that we put a close to this chapter. We have come to Renesita. We have finished the entire story of Renesita. The roller coaster ride we have been through in Renesita alone. It's about time we come off this ride. Time for us to come off this ride and find ourselves going to the next ride to see exactly where the next adventure goes. They have done it. They are putting this together as a I would take it as a sense is that they want to ensure that the story of Renesita closes where questions have been answered, things that have been said throughout the story has been answered, that everything that we knew from before has come to fruition now. And I am all and ready and happy and ready to see what's going to happen in 2.7 story wise because the roller coaster ride that the main story quest has taken us on from since the beginning of Renaissance 2.0, you would never imagine that it would take us to the point to where we are now. We are now coming to the finale of it. After making such a journey, we have gone through so much emotion, so much drama within the story, so much suspense, so much emotions run through it, and everything that has happened around the world building of Infinite City itself. We have reached the point now we are going to say it is coming to an end. Let us make the journey together. And that's where I stand with it. I'm happy for it. I may be one of the few that may actually like it. Sure, I do miss the fact that there are combat event, combat challenges that they don't have it. But as I would consider myself just above a casual player, I still have holograms to finish off. I still have certain combat challenges still to do. So I know I still have some content to do. I'm not one of the upper echelons of it where you have your account ready to go and just go through everything. You have a good bit of player base that still has a lot of pitching up to do, a lot of in a sense of doing certain things in the game. There's so many events that a lot of people have not been able to complete as yet. I am one of them especially that we have to try to catch up on everything in time for the finale. So this is the Caribbean Pirate. Like and subscribe, like the video, and put in the comments below whether or not what do you think about the 2.7 patch. Is it going to be a patch where you're like, in a sense, you're glad that the story is now coming to an end and we can now move forward into a new area, into new experiences, into new challenges? Or is it that you're one of the combat players that After having no combat for so long and the the itch that wasn't scratched by the second two floors in the TOA just didn't do it for you. What is it that you, how to put it, want scratch that itch? What combat events you want to scratch that itch again? Because I know for me, combat challenges were really nice in that sense. You really had that chance to really flex your skills. But is it that we need a time where we have to kind of like put that on pause for a bit and let the story continue in order for us to then make the next journey into the next patch, into the next region to see exactly what Crow has in store for us? So this is the Korean Pirate. You can catch me on Twitch. It links to me in the description below. And here we are, sailing off.